Hello friends, David and Yvonne Roller here. Glad to greet you. We're speaking to you from the States, you can probably tell, living here in Baltimore. And we have just celebrated 42 years of being married. And Pastor Nick suggested that we share a little bit of some of the things we've learned, some of the things that we're still learning. We know that when you're starting out or when you're in the middle of a marriage, it can feel pretty gloomy. I mean, we're surrounded by people whose marriages don't work, and yet you understand that God's intention for us is this lifelong man and woman going through life together and experiencing all of life and the richness of that. So we're just going to share a little bit about maybe things we've learned and what we would share with you.
We have such fond memories of being together with you, of the life and sounds of your family and your children. We have a lot of love for you, so it's a joy to talk with you this morning.
So it's Renewal Center, isn't it? Transformation Center.
Yeah.
Glad to be with you. And this is like I don't know if it's a marriage class, right? But it's a time for couples to gather and to think together about this. So I would just say one of the delights of being married a long time is that you begin to understand the richness that a relationship over time can bring that nobody gets until you've been married for a while, right? So people, we look at young married couples and we just kind of smile and we think they have so many delights ahead of them, because you cannot get to that kind of trust fast. It just takes a certain amount of time. What would you say are some of the things we've learned?
I just was wondering, so we recently had the privilege to be with the National Youth Convention of the Free Methodist Church. And honey, you painted these 3 pictures. I thought those were helpful just to keep these images, and maybe the Lord would kind of cement them in your hearts as well, or help to nurture those images that you already have, those things that the Lord has put in your heart. Vision really for your marriage. Do you mind?
Well, yeah, sure. So these are just 3 kind of pictures I have in my head for a good relationship. And some of these may not, you're already married probably. So the first image I have is of leaving your own wedding reception early. So I don't know how it is there in Northern Ireland, but here where we live, you have the wedding ceremony and then people go to a reception afterward. And I've noticed recently that a lot of people who just got married are not in a hurry to get to their honeymoon. And I think I know why.
Yeah.
Right? So they're living together or they're sleeping together. So there's no, they didn't wait until marriage, and maybe some of you are in that position, where you had sexual relations before marriage. And so the good news is there always is a way back onto God's path, right? God has a path, and it's the best path. And there will be consequences in our own memories and our own relationship. Trust can be broken and all that if we get off God's path. But there's one image I have is of wanting to leave your wedding reception early, just because you're in a hurry to get to that point where you've been waiting for, to be sexually together, to be what the Bible calls one flesh. This is God's idea. So sex is a huge part of being married. I think we've all figured that out, but it's maybe bigger than we think about, because we think just culturally we think about sex as being pleasurable, and it certainly is, and God made it. It's a good thing. This is not original sin. It's not something nasty or naughty. The sex is God's good thing for us in marriage for a whole lifetime, and that's where it's really enjoyed. But we think about the pleasurable aspect of sex, right? But it goes beyond that to the intimacy aspect. And that's what I was talking about earlier, where you can't get there quickly. Intimacy requires trust. So 42 years of not breaking trust builds a great place for sex. Because it happens within this bond of we're not going to hurt each other.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the one image, right? Were you going to say something?
Sex is being intimate with each other, and it also involves the trust, like in a public relationship, that you're going to consider each other. I mean, I keep seeing new expressions of this intimacy that would be a part really of us as sexual beings.
Yeah, so building that trust, there's no room, you talked about public, right? So there's no room for little public or private, I suppose, but where I see it is in public. I see these little private jabs that couples make at each other, little digs, we might say here in America, little minor points of demeaning their spouse. You know, so I get it that in popular culture, spouses talk about their so men talk about their wives, or wives talk about their husbands in a demeaning way. Things like ball and chain, you know, they use that expression, or battle axe. Well, so just back to these three images. So you have that one image, right, of leaving your wedding reception early. And I have another image about sex, which involves holding a child, your own child that you've made, because this is a big part of sex. Is you know, I think we all understand, right? This is where babies come from. So when you hold a child, that is the ultimate outcome of this, the making love. And it's the way God planned it, and it's a good thing, but we shouldn't make those two separate things, right? It is an important part of the relationship to have children. Now, I understand there are cases, you know, there are medical reasons why you can't, there are you know, whatever. I understand that not every couple is fertile for whatever reason, and so that can't always be true, but still, by and large, this is a normal part of a couple, and only when you get older do you realize how important that is in terms of meaning of life. You know, I mean, we take great pleasure in our two adult children, and they're some of the most important relationships we have. Anyway, that's the second image, and the third image is this image. So I'll just tell you what, let me just grab my coffee cup here, because this is a part of it. So every morning, Yvonne and I have a cup of coffee together. It could be tea, it could be something else, but for us it's coffee. This is intimacy, right? So no matter if we're traveling or not, we always take, well, I shouldn't say always, but we always try to have this time in the morning where I make coffee, I grind it, I warm the milk, we sit down, and I don't usually think I have anything to say. Maybe you do. I don't know how you feel coming into that. But
we haven't really planned conversation.
No, it's just, you just sit down and you see what you talk. So this is the intimacy that you can only get to over a long time of trusting, where like nobody else knows our stories. You know, nobody else was there besides me when you gave birth to those two children. Nobody knows that. Nobody else can tell that story. And we could say that about 1,000 things. What else? Okay, so those are three images.
Three pictures of, one is sexual purity. And so within your marriage too, just that, keeping your eyes like for the one you love, making sure that we keep our marriages pure. But
we just have one.
Yeah, that's right.
You said marriages. So just clarifying.
So that image of wanting to leaving your reception early just because you've kept yourself for each other, and that's just a commitment. And the second one was enjoying some of the outcomes of the intimacy, enjoying especially the privilege to conceive and bear children and be a family. And then that third image of growing old together, which we talk about intimacy getting richer and richer from when we were 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 to 60. And that might be an encouragement to you too, just that depth and richness in relationship. And so that's really this image that you keep vivid even as you invest in your marriage and spend time with each other. And I just was going to say, so this matter of relationship, which intimacy is, mirrors. I mean, it's one way that we're made in the image of God. So the Father,
Oh, yeah.
Son, and Spirit
Probably
are
the essential
one.
the essential image of God is this relationship.
Yeah. I wanted just to say that, even looking back to the Garden of Eden, to what relationship was like, the sweet communion. So I think that even as as Jesus lived, died, and was resurrected and lifted the curse, I think there's this building of that relationship again towards the new heaven and the new earth. And so I think we can ask the author of life for his help and insight, and even in these sexual sorts of, in our relationship.